Look down at your midsection right now. If you see excess fat sitting around your waistline, you need to understand something critical. This is not just about aesthetics or feeling uncomfortable in your favorite jeans. That accumulation of abdominal fat is actively working against your body every single second of every single day. It is raising your risk of heart disease, pushing you toward type 2 diabetes, and triggering a hormonal cascade that makes everything worse. As your waist expands beyond your hips, hormones like testosterone, insulin, leptin, and ghrelin begin shifting in dangerous directions. This creates a destructive cycle where storing fat becomes easier and losing it becomes nearly impossible. The larger your waistline grows, the more inevitable serious medical complications become. Beyond the health dangers, carrying excess weight around your stomach simply makes you look and feel worse than you deserve. But here is the truth that most people never hear. You can reverse this situation faster than you think by making strategic changes that actually work. Most beginners immediately jump to the wrong solution, and that mistake costs them months of wasted effort. When people first decide to attack their belly fat, they almost always start doing endless crunches and sit-ups. They assume that targeting the area directly will burn the fat sitting on top of their abdominal muscles. This logic seems to make sense on the surface, but the reality is completely different. Research shows us clearly that exercising a specific body part does not burn fat from that particular area. Scientists conducted a study where participants trained only one leg intensively for 12 weeks, while leaving the other leg completely untrained. After 3 months, researchers measured the fat loss in both legs and found virtually no difference between them. Another study took the same approach with arms. One arm was trained heavily for 12 weeks while the other arm did nothing. Once again, there was no significant difference in fat reduction between the trained arm and the untrained arm. When researchers looked specifically at abdominal training, the results were identical. Performing countless abdominal exercises simply does not burn the fat covering those muscles. Now, there was one recent study that showed different results and caused some excitement in the fitness community. This particular research found that participants who trained only their lower body lost significantly more fat from their lower body, while participants who focused exclusively on upper body training lost more fat from their upper body. The researchers identified 3 specific conditions that might make spot reduction possible. First, the exercise intensity must be extremely high, which for abdominal training would mean loading the abs with heavy resistance. This high intensity supposedly helps release and mobilize fat stores in that specific area. However, mobilizing fat does not automatically mean your body will burn it for energy. If the released fat is not oxidized through a process called lipolysis, it simply returns to exactly where it started. This brings us to the second condition, which requires immediately following the targeted exercise with an activity that burns massive amounts of calories, such as cardio or full-body interval training. The third requirement is maintaining an overall calorie deficit throughout the entire process. Even with all 3 conditions met, there is still no guarantee you will burn more fat specifically from your belly. We need far more research before drawing any solid conclusions. The overwhelming majority of scientific evidence still tells us that spot reduction is largely a myth, and that total body fat reduction achieved primarily through proper nutrition is the most effective path to losing belly fat. This brings us to our first evidence-based strategy. You need to shift your entire focus away from trying to burn belly fat through exercise and instead concentrate on creating the right nutritional environment for fat loss. The moment I mention fixing your diet, everyone immediately asks the same question. What is the best diet plan that will help me eat less and eliminate this gut? Should I cut carbs or should I cut fat? Most people today assume that eliminating carbohydrates is the answer, and low-carb approaches do offer some legitimate advantages. Simply by removing carbs from your diet, you will likely create a calorie deficit without even trying. With a low-fat diet, you will probably still need to track your food intake carefully to ensure you are eating less than you burn. Another benefit of low-carb eating is that certain studies demonstrate it reduces appetite and controls hunger more effectively than low-fat approaches. Carbohydrate restriction also rapidly lowers insulin levels, which matters for fat loss because insulin promotes fat production and storage while simultaneously preventing your body from accessing previously stored fat for energy. Despite all these supposed benefits, The true factor that determines whether a diet plan actually works comes down to one thing. Can you stick to it consistently over time? A major study involving over 600 participants split between a low-fat group and a low-carb group proved this point perfectly. After one full year of dieting, some people in each group lost substantial amounts of weight, others lost minimal weight, and some participants actually gained weight. When researchers compared the total weight loss charts for both the low-fat and low-carb groups, they found the results were nearly identical. This tells us something crucial. There is no single best diet plan that works for everyone, and your goal should not be to simply eat less food. Our second evidence-based tip is straightforward. The eating approach you genuinely enjoy and can maintain consistently is the one that will actually deliver results for you specifically. If you want to follow a plan that helps you shed fat without sacrificing muscle tissue in the process, that plan must provide 3 essential elements. First, you have to actually enjoy the food choices available within your chosen approach. Otherwise, adherence becomes impossible. If you cannot imagine your life without carbohydrates, then forcing yourself onto an extremely low-carb diet is setting yourself up for failure. Second, you must prioritize protein-rich foods and consume adequate amounts daily. Protein helps preserve lean muscle mass during a cutting phase and elevates your resting metabolic rate because digesting protein requires significantly more energy compared to processing carbohydrates or fats. Third, and most important, you need to adopt an eat more mentality rather than the typical eat less mentality. You accomplish this by selecting foods that fill you up without requiring massive amounts of calories. In other words, most of your food intake should not consist of calorically dense options like ice cream and cake. Instead, you should emphasize foods with low calorie density like vegetables. Protein provides another major advantage here because it excels at satisfying hunger and suppressing appetite naturally. Beyond vegetables and protein, we can identify other highly filling foods by examining the satiety index, which ranks different foods based on their ability to reduce hunger. While this list is not perfect since it was created based on subjective ratings from participants, you can immediately notice a clear pattern. Almost all the most filling foods on the right side of the index are whole, natural, single-ingredient foods. Meanwhile, the least filling foods on the left side were predominantly processed items. Natural unprocessed foods not only keep you fuller longer, but they also require substantially more energy to digest, similar to protein. This further elevates your resting metabolism and accelerates fat burning. This is why drinking a glass of orange juice versus eating a whole orange produces dramatically different effects on your metabolism. Your body expends far more energy digesting the orange in its complete natural state compared to the processed orange juice. We can see this principle clearly demonstrated in a study where researchers compared eating a processed sandwich to a minimally processed sandwich. Despite having identical calories and macronutrients, the minimally processed sandwich required twice as much energy to digest. Over time, this difference in digestive energy expenditure can create a massive impact on how many net calories your body actually absorbs, making fat loss significantly easier and helping you maintain a leaner waistline. The bottom line is simple. If you want to create a sustainable and effective eating plan you can actually stick to long-term, focus on a high-protein diet filled with single-ingredient whole foods that you genuinely enjoy eating. Our third science-based strategy is absolutely essential for losing the fat around your midsection and keeping it off permanently. You must incorporate progressive strength training into your weekly routine. In a 12-year study tracking over 10,500 men, researchers discovered that over the long term, lifting weights was twice as effective as cardiovascular exercise for maintaining a slim waist. Weight training and progressively getting stronger over time is incredibly powerful because it produces remarkable changes in your body composition. Lifting weights helps you build muscle mass and burn significant calories during and after your training session. Most importantly, building muscle is one of the only methods available for boosting your resting metabolic rate. In a study comparing bodybuilders to a control group with less muscle mass, the bodybuilders demonstrated significantly higher resting metabolic rates. They were burning over 350 additional calories per day at rest compared to the control group. When you can burn more calories while doing absolutely nothing, losing body fat and keeping it off becomes dramatically easier without requiring you to starve yourself constantly. Make sure you are lifting weights at least 3 times per week and ensure you are training every major muscle group in your body using compound movements like squats, deadlifts, bench presses, and rows. Then make it your top priority to progressively increase the weight load you lift for all exercises and continuously get stronger. This progressive overload is the most effective method for building additional muscle tissue and elevating your metabolism. Beyond weight training sessions, many people want to add cardiovascular exercise to accelerate belly fat loss. While cardio is not inherently bad if your goal is improving endurance and conditioning, for fat loss purposes, cardio will not provide the metabolic enhancement effects that weight training delivers. This is because cardiovascular exercise is simply not as effective at building muscle tissue. When we examine multiple studies on this topic, we discover something called the concurrent training effect or the interference effect. Essentially, your body struggles to improve simultaneously at both cardio and weight training. 3 specific studies demonstrated that combining resistance training with cardio leads to reduced lower body strength gains, diminished explosive strength development, and decreased strength improvements in circuit training. Researchers believe this happens because cardio activates an enzyme called AMPK, which enhances endurance capacity but also inhibits mTOR, a critical pathway for muscle building. While you can perform both cardio and resistance training to obtain the benefits each provides, you will need to prioritize one direction over the other. If your goal is building an impressive physique and eliminating belly fat, focusing on strength training will benefit you far more over the long term. Remember, strength training produces more lean muscle mass and a faster metabolism. Excessive cardio, on the other hand, will reduce the strength gains you achieve from weight training workouts. It will chronically deplete your glycogen stores and limit your ability to progressively lift heavier weights over time. Too much cardio also shifts your muscle fiber composition from fast twitch fibers, which are superior for strength and muscle growth, to slow twitch fibers, which are better suited for endurance activities. The bottom line is you should not be following cardio-only programs if you want to create an outstanding physique. Instead, you should perform the minimum amount of cardio necessary to support the fat loss process while focusing primarily on progressive overload with weights. I recommend starting with 0 cardio sessions, and when you hit a plateau in your fat loss progress, slowly add one short high-intensity interval training cardio session at a time. The long-term advantages of having a faster metabolism far exceed the short-term benefits of burning a few extra calories through cardio sessions. That covers everything you need to know about losing belly fat using science-based methods. If you found this information valuable and want to continue learning about evidence-based fitness strategies, make sure you subscribe to FormVibe and stay tuned for more content that will help you transform your physique using proven methods that actually work.